And that was cool in New York. Oh, the Film Academy. Yeah, the Film Academy, because it's not like a big school. Yes, not a college, so she. That's Florida. That's but she doesn't
Do I want this to be muted? Do I want the Zoom to be muted? Well, and so this will go to that audio, right? Yeah. Okay, perfect. Oh, let me listen to it. I have it unmuted right now. Don't, okay. Thank you. A control. Volunteer in the room. Thank you all for making it out today. Again, we're very excited to have welcome managers, post budget, and anything the water program. That area, and I'm the vice chair of the Arlington Committee of 100. I'm standing in for Jerry report. Unfortunately, had tested positive for COVID, so he is watching from home today. I hope, but it's okay if you're not, Jerry. You can take a rest. And is isolating and just watching online. If you're watching us on Facebook Live, please consider sharing this with your friends. If this is something they might be interested in. I want to start out by welcoming the elected officials who are here with us this evening. Patrick Hope, delegate to the Virginia General Assembly, and you official either online or in the room, please let me know. Send an email on the chat box or send a post-it somehow here in the room. John Wyden, co-chair with Patrick Hope of the program committee. We did in organizing tonight's program. Round of applause. I want to share our gratitude to Arlington Independent Media for helping us seamlessly run this program tonight. Thank you to the crew out here. Next month will be on April 12th. And help us provide these programs in a virtual platform. Like I was saying, April 12th is our next program date. It will be in person as well and scheduled to maybe be here at the Lover Run Community Center. So please, if you're watching from Zoom, consider joining us. We're having a lot of fun here in Arlington and congregating with fellow Arlingtonians. The topic for that program is the forum for the candidates in the Democratic primary for the office of the Commonwealth Attorney. The program following that one in May is also a forum, the forum for the candidates in the Democratic primary for county board. That one will also be in person, so you have two opportunities to come down and meet us in person. And for you here today, come back for the next two programs. You will soon be able to register for the programs. We'll have the links up either on our website or in the link notes. So look for those. And before we get started with tonight's program topic, I need to make a shameless plug for the support of our organization. You can support the Arlington Committee of 100 in a number of ways. One way is to become a member of the organization. If you haven't done so already, you can scan this QR code and make a contribution, and that contribution will make you a member. So it's pretty easy. There's also QR codes on your table, and We hope you all become members if you are not already. Members are individuals and couples who make a financial donation. So any amount is really welcome and supports our community. Deliver a nonpartisan community-wide way to gather community members and talk about issues affecting our Arlington community. You can also send checks by mail, and the address is there. You can find that address and our website is. Another way to be on Video 100 is by becoming a volunteer. We have a volunteer form available on our website, and we welcome you to get involved. Now, for submitting a question for this evening's presenter, if you are in person, you will be able to ask questions at the end of the presentation. By raising your hand, you will be called on, and you are reminded to ask your question in the form of a question. If you are tuning in online, you can submit your question through the Q&A feature on the Zoom screen. There is a screenshot there for you to locate it, and we will address your questions as well as the people here in person. Moving on to the main part of the program. Our speaker tonight, County Manager Mark Edwards, has held his current position for over 7 years, since January 2016. Before being named County Manager, Mark had been acting County Manager for several years. He joined the Arlington County government in 2005 and served as Deputy Chief Financial Officer, Director of the Department of Management and Finance, and Deputy County Manager before being named Acting County Manager in July 2015. Mark and his wife, Jamie, have lived in Arlington for 38 years and have raised 2 daughters here who were educated in Arlington Public Schools. Before joining the Arlington County government, Mark served for 12 years in the U.S. Office of Management and Budget. Executive Office of the President, sorry, long time. He holds a BA from Harvard University and a JD from University of Pennsylvania School of Law. So thank you so much, Mark, for joining us this evening. And let me pull up your slide. Tony, I heard it.
Thanks. You know, I have on occasion been to this committee. Is the thing that I appreciate most about the survey, very unique role in Arlington. It's surprising to me that there isn't actually more of what you do. People who come together once a month, hear about an issue and have a conversation about it, not to make a point, but to learn more, express views, and to learn from each other. I've always found that interesting. I think that my favorite committee of 100 meeting, John likes that, was John Warwick singing the ballad from the farmhouse up on Greensland. The ballad of Greensland. Yes, that was my favorite committee. Years since then. I wanted to thank everybody for the opportunity. Now, I have some slides up here, but I wanted to start with where you asked me to talk a little bit about the budget. This is the best part of the budget process. I made my, and it's with 5 members of the county board. We started our work session. We had a fairly extensive work session yesterday with the Department of Environmental Services, or as a couple of board members are now referring to the Department of Everything Under the Sun. don't see, it's all the pipes underground, it's transportation, it's environment, a very extended conversation yesterday. And tomorrow we're doing Department of Youth Services and our other programs. So a lot of things very timely. So what I want to do, that I know you work a lot on the budget. The budget is over 1,000 pages. I don't actually expect people to read it, but I've been spending some care every year in putting together a message. I'm just going to take a minute. I want to read you. This is the paragraph I started off my message with. I think it summarizes my approach this year. It says, as with each year, my proposed budget is a statement of priorities for this community. I'm going to pause there for a second. It's the one time a year we're ready to get together, and money does matter enormously. And that's how you state your priorities as a community. We have a lot of plans in the county, and I think they're fantastic. The way we implement them every year is really focused to spend our money. So I'm going to say we hire and pay basically dedicated and talented staff and provide hundreds of programs to deliver excellent services to our residents. Doing this against a backdrop of continued distress and housing affordability, growing needs for behavioral health care, the record-setting commercial office vacancy rates, and inflationary pressures affecting our staff and residents is a challenge. But as I've often noted, we are a resilient community. So, and I go on to say we've seen continued growth in our revenues, and the fiscal 24 budget tries to balance all those things I just mentioned. So, I guess I'm gonna, do I click advance on this? Okay. I'm not a digital native, but I'm not a digital idiot. Oh, there you go. All right, so our revenues continue to improve. As a matter of fact, I was commenting to somebody the other day, I was so happy that we have a couple of people in our office who serve as ombuds people. We're getting lots of complaints here. There was just an article today about our permitting system. And there was a article about that. There's comments about, I said, I feel so good because it means to me that we're not quite over the pandemic, but everybody's back to commenting on all the good old things. So we're at a point right now where our tax revenues are doing really well. We continue to see improvement in not only our residential values for houses, and I'll talk a little bit about the commercial values in a minute, but our meals and sales taxes are going like crazy. People are eating a lot and buying a lot of things. And that is something that was actually prevalent during the pandemic, but has really come back. We're above where we used to be before. Our transient occupancy taxes, which is what we collect for our hotels, we're almost back to where we were for the pandemic, which is really amazing. So there's a word I want you to all learn today. It's leisure, okay? Well, people who are coming to our hotels are mostly coming for leisure, but with a little bit of business. This is actually a word, it hasn't made it to the OED yet, but leisure is what's happening and helping with our revenues. So we continue to have expense pressures. I talked a little bit about some of the investments that we need to be making. We have a revenue sharing arrangement with schools. Housing is a real challenge, and you can't help but, I think, realize that Arlington County is not immune. We've seen some really unfortunate graphic evidence of what's going on with behavioral health care and sort of the intersection of schools, not just schools, but more broadly in our community. So that is a challenge. We continue to have all the programs that everybody loves. So that is in that background. By the numbers, our budget is an increase of almost 3%. It's a $1.5 billion budget, a lot of money. Our biggest expenditure, as it should be, is our schools, almost $608 million. And that money, that number is derived as it's a mathematical derivation based on what happened in fiscal 23. We take the overall general fund budget and the amount that schools got, we come up with a percentage. And that's, I think it's 46.8%. We multiply that by all our tax revenues. That's what they get. There's not an argument over that. Now, maybe there should be an argument, but for the last almost over 20 years, there's been a revenue sharing arrangement. They get that number, and I want to compliment the superintendent for not coming and asking for more. That doesn't mean that the school board won't ask for more. That's that number. And for the county, so that's at 4%, and the county operating is up a little bit over 2%. So we talked a little bit about, with our county board, they wanted us to put together a budget. Obviously, I mean, if you're on the county board, and I know there's some people in this room who want to be on the county board. So you always need to ask the county manager to come up with service and program efficiencies. I mean, I think about it and I'll do it, but it never hurts to say it. So on the subsequent slide, there's about 20 positions that we've taken out of the budget. They're vacant. I always go out of my way to eliminate positions to make sure they're not filled, because we have been through a few years, we've had to reduce positions that have been filled. We have the added, I call it the added fund this year. For the first time in 50 years in Virginia, and the county board authorized this, we did collective bargaining with our police union, our fire union, and our service and labor and trade workers. And that we are funding the awards that we received in the arbitrations during that and collective bargaining. That's a whole new dynamic. Took a huge amount of time. I think collective bargaining is a really good thing, but it's new for us and it took a lot of time and energy. And we'll talk a little bit more about, our housing expenditures and what's happening at schools. I talked a little about that already. We presented a budget that follows through, and if you've been following our change on how we're going to be getting revenue related to stormwater, right now it's an ad valorem rate on your tax bill. We're going to be switching from that to a utility, which is based on the amount of impervious surface on a property. And we're continuing to invest in the environment, and there's a whole series of things we're following up. Our equity resolution work that we did over 2 years ago with our police practices group, and then commercial resiliency. I'll talk about that in a minute, because that's really sort of important. Here again, we had higher than anticipated real estate assessment growth. I wanted to talk a little bit about that. So I'm not going to walk too far from the microphone. So my friends at AIM don't have a hard time. But the commercial sector, right now, we have a 22.1% vacancy rate in our commercial office space. 22.1%. That is a record, not a record that anyone's happy about. And so I will state the obvious. The reason why we have such a high vacancy rate is the world has changed in the last 3 years in a way people thought it was changing over 10 years ago, but it has really changed. People who are working for companies are teleworking, or they've changed their lives so that they're in the office 2 days a week or 3 days a week. I've given this little anecdote before. I met with a group of developers about 2 months ago, and I said, "What are you all going to do to help, fill these office buildings?" And they said, "Schwartz." We go, "Oh, they call me Schwartz. That's like I'm at home or something."
Sure.
What are the problem? I go, "What do you mean I'm the problem? You have to tell county workers to come back to the office 5 days a week. When you do that, and when you call Biden up," they actually said this, "and tell them to get the federal employees to come back 5 days a week, then we can talk about what we're going to do with the vacancy rate." So, and I know that one house of Congress has passed a bill to that effect, but that I'm going to tell you right now, that isn't going to happen. And if I told county employees they needed to come back to the office 5 days a week, a whole bunch of them would quit. Not because their jobs aren't exciting, but everyone made a new life. They have a new rhythm to their life. And my friends in Fairfax County, the county executive there, is thinking about asking his staff to come back 5 days a week, and I'm really encouraging him to do that, because we have a lot of vacancies in Arlington County, and people doesn't. So that is one of the challenges we have. So I'll talk a little bit about some of our strategies in approaching that, but we expected to see a big hit in our commercial values. Commercial values were down, but when you add new construction on top of it, and commercial values include multifamily apartments, we actually were up. So over the course of the last 2 years, we've seen it, and over the next 5 years, we'll see it. As leases come off the books, long-term leases, and companies sign up for leases, they're not signing up for 10-year leases or 5-year leases. They're signing up for month-to-month leases. At the most, they're signing up for year leases, and they're signing up for leases of a lot less space. And you know what? I don't blame them. We did the same thing in the county. Our county office building, we signed a lease a few years ago where we took a little bit less space and we got a really good deal on it. And so I'm expecting them to do that. So I talked a little bit about some of the service reductions, a gift that I'm very proud of from 4 years ago when we made a deal with Amazon. There's a solar farm out near Danville, Virginia, that has a bunch of sheep grazing around it, and it's providing a lot of electricity to the grid. And we're getting a lot of solar credits for that. That was a big help to us on the budget. We had lower debt service than we were expecting, and unfortunately, we have a lot of vacancies. We're at a record number of vacancies in the county, around 500. We're usually around 200 to 300. We have a high number of vacancies. I'm sure a lot of you, if you're in the market where you're in business or in government, the labor market is still sort of upside down, where there's not enough people for the jobs. And we find ourselves in that situation. We have a police department with a 15% vacancy rate. We have some places in the Department of Human Services and Behavioral Health Care with 35 and 40% vacancy rates. And I'm going to tell you right now, it's not just a question of pay, it's a question of work they do and sort of the circumstances we're in. We'll talk about that a little bit in a minute. So in my budget, I proposed a series of things. I left $4.5 million of one-time money on the table. Talk about that in a minute. Talked about the real estate tax rate. We kept that constant. That doesn't mean your bill is constant. I'll talk about that in a minute. Stormwater tax rate constant, but the average residential property increase, if you own a single family home, you'll be seeing on average a $369 increase in your tax bill. And then also something that's gotten a lot of press recently is what's going on with our household solid waste rate. So that is going up about 25%. For 7 years, it's been essentially flat. We had an agreement that lasted 7 years. We got a really good rate on it. We locked in rates. Now every industry is seeing this. Our trash hauler, and we're having our contract out to bid, they're experiencing labor shortages, increased costs. So we are going to have to pay that, and that's passed on to the household solid waste rate. Again, I talked about here on the right side, you see where our tax revenues are up, and our non-tax revenue growth is actually down. Money we're getting from the federal government, down a lot, 48%. You know why that is? Because all the money from the pandemic, one-time money we got in CARES is going away. And that's
how does it compare to pre-pandemic?
Pre-pandemic, we are doing, our federal revenue is about flat from where it was pre-pandemic. And our state revenue is up a little bit. I know Patrick Hope is in the room. I know he's going to do his best because Patrick is apparently the governor gave him the huge surplus to carry around with him. It's us. We're going to go there afterwards, take a little sampling of it. And so that's what's going on there. We're hoping the state will help us, but we'll see. Not going to go through all the details here. The 20 positions that we said we're not filling are places where I think we could absorb the capacity. One thing I'll note, which always gets a lot of attention, we have one of our planning staff positions that's vacant. We're not going to fill. The county board will probably ask us to do 50 more plans and say, why aren't we filling it? But we have to make some choices here. I'm happy to go through any of the details on that, about $5.5 million in reductions. Something else here, I call it, we're in the process of weaning ourselves from using one-time money in fiscal 22. We did that because we were short on revenue. We had this ARPA money coming from the federal government. We used $16 million of it to fund our ongoing programs. That's a no-no when it comes to budgeting. So I like to say we've been committing a budget misdemeanor. We're doing less of it, where our goal is to get it down to 0, but we need to wean ourselves over the course of time. So our goal is by 26 to get down to 0. And I think this is something that's prudent at the moment. So we're doing that. So not something I'd like to do, but we're doing it to sort of wean ourselves off of that reliance on that money. Priorities in the budget, compensation. I talked a little bit about in my speech here about it's our employees. We can't do anything without our employees. Most employees are getting a 4.5% pay raise. That doesn't keep up with inflation. Our police, we bargained with them and we proposed and the arbitrator awarded a 10% raise. Keep in mind that last year our police, or this current year, got a 13.5% raise, and this year a 10% raise on top of that. That's almost 24% raise in 2 years. We still have a vacancy rate of 15%. I'm absolutely convinced pay is an important part of the conversation, but you have to acknowledge what's been going on in the country in the last couple of years. For some members of our police department, they said it's too much for them. and the environment where they feel, and that this is the way they feel about it. It's just tough to be a police officer. I don't know if that narrative necessarily holds in Arlington as much as it does in other places, but we've been losing a lot of people. And then there's this company I've heard of, Amazon, I don't know if you've heard of them. They've hired a fair number of our police officers. So, it keeps them in. So, we have, as you can see, our sheriff, I proposed an 8.5% pay raise. They're under some of the same stresses on staffing. And we also are increasing a number of benefits, which I'm proud that we do. This has always been my first priority. Housing, people like to focus a lot on the dollar amount that's being spent on housing, and I think that's actually appropriate. We're at $76 million this year, a little bit less than the year before. But I really like it all. There's one thing you take away from my presentation. Look at this bar graph. So in fiscal 24, that yellow bar, which is eviction prevention households, that bar didn't exist in fiscal 2015. So the way we're doing our housing programs has completely changed its focus. This happened starting during the pandemic. The amount of money we're spending to ensure people aren't evicted from their households is something that we didn't really even plan for. The number has grown. We're now making some changes in the requirements. We're putting some caps on it. But I will tell you, what happened during the pandemic was, I don't think all of a sudden there were a whole lot of new people in the county, but a lot of people who started to trust us and were desperate, who came to us for money and felt comfortable doing it. And we're providing them that. And I think that this is what we're seeing. We're now in a situation where we're working with APA and AHC to see whether the providing eviction prevention money makes sense in every case. We have a job requirement that goes with that. It's a pretty complicated issue, but that is a big change. You also can see the number of inspections we do. I'm sure you all heard about what was happening in the Serrano for the last year and a half. That was a program, our inspection program was minuscule. And we have an aging housing stock in our county of committed affordable units. And it's important that we increase our spending on that. And our housing grants continue to grow. So you'll hear a lot from, we need to put more into our affordable housing investment fund. Well, some of that money we would have used is going for these kinds of expenses. And let's not forget what we did last year, which was with Barcroft. A big chunk of our affordable housing money is going to go support the debt service on that $150 million commitment we made for keeping those 1,330 units affordable in the county and not becoming expensive condos, and the deal that we did with Jarrett Lynch and Amazon. So that is where a lot of our money is also going to go. I'm speeding through this. Capital investments, I don't need to read this to you. These are the buckets. We still have needs. This is not a CIP year, but these are our PAYGO investments, technology parks, transportation, public safety facilities, our neighborhoods program. There's 4 projects coming to the board this month, which is it's a great program. And also what we're doing in energy. Our investments in schools. I talked about the amount of money we're investing in our schools is up to $607 million. And I have to put in a plug, there's $10 million in our budget that doesn't get counted in the school's budget, where we're providing fleet management for them, we're providing crossing guards, we're providing youth programming, we're doing a lot of things to continue to assist them, and that's the right thing to do. Stormwater, collective bargaining environment, I talked a little bit. I think we're following up on the work of our police practices group. We're about to announce at the end of this month, we finally will be opening up our crisis intervention center. I think, Whitney, you were on the police practices group. We started about 2 years ago about talking about shifting how services are done so our police are not the first responders for a lot of mental health issues. We needed to have a place where we could take people who are in crisis. It has taken us 2 years not to build the facility, not to come up with the ideas for the program, but to staff it. It's just been an incredible challenge. We're ready to flip the switch on that, which I'm very excited about. But it's taken us a long time. Happy to talk about if you have questions on what we're doing in equity, and I talked a little bit about long-range sustainability, commercial resiliency. I talked about the vacancy rate. We have continued over the last year to come to the county board. We have flipped our process a little bit on its head, where we bring advertisements to the board before we have any conversation with the public about opening up our commercial spaces for dog grooming, micro breweries. We have a set coming this week, next week for medical and dental services. R&D in commercial spaces. There's a long list of things that our zoning ordinance, micro fulfillment centers never conceived of when it was written. And our zoning ordinance is cluttered with things that make it really, really hard for our commercial spaces to do anything other than your standard Monday to Friday business kind of thing. And it's time to clear that up. And we have a team dedicated to doing that. It's a lot of work. My attitude, which is maybe not an attitude shared by a lot of people in the community, is as long as you're standing on the street and you're looking at a building and there's no noxious fumes coming out of there and a lot of noise, whatever's going on inside, and it doesn't generate a lot of traffic, we should be okay with sort of doing what's going on in there. For the most part, our zoning ordinance isn't built out. So we're clearing that out. We got a lot of work to do. Yes.
Pickleball on that list.
Pickleball is a massive act. The county board last month did a request to advertise that would allow indoor recreation activities, including pickleball.
There you go. That's good.
And by the way, if any of you watch Stephen Colbert, you have to go back last night to see Stephen Colbert, and meanwhile, where Arlington County was featured in the discussion about pickleball. I'm telling you, that was both really good and really bad, because we got Stephen Colbert. We got some, I think perhaps well-deserved treatment on pickleball. We're gonna have a long conversation about our libraries. Please come next week. We're opening up in courthouse a new, with the library that was there before, a really cool new space there. We're about a year or two out from opening one up in Crystal City. We have a lot of conversations we need to have with our libraries, because there's gonna be a new one on Columbia Pike in about 5 years. So we're gonna spend some time working in the future.
Is that meeting?
When is that?
Is that opening?
The one in Crystal City
No, the one in the courthouse.
next week. Yay. Yay. And yes, so I can make the walk from the Jefferson. It's not that far. Challenges for next year. Metro. I don't know if you know this. Ridership's down. I have no answer for that. Good luck for all of you who are running for county board, because I'm sure you'll come up with an answer for that. Office market, commercial vacancies, I talked about that. Housing demand. Do you notice I made it through the whole presentation without mentioning? What's that issue that I'm talking about? I can't remember. Retaining a high quality workforce and managing our infrastructure. So the board advertised these fees and taxes. I'm not going to spend time on that. This is the thing where I talked a little bit about the impact on each individual. If you look to the next to last column, $454 on the mythical average homeowner. Personal property taxes, and here's the schedule. Personal property taxes, which are automobiles. Last year, it was crazy what was going on with the values of cars. They went through the roof. Used cars. Things have actually completely come back to where they were. There was this 1 year spike. So last year, we didn't even appraise car values at 100%. We did it at 88%. So car values have actually settled back, according to JD Power, to where they were. So I just ran through a huge amount of stuff. If you heard anything, I hope you heard what I said at the beginning. I'm sorry I took so much time. I'm here to answer any questions, and I welcome whatever questions you might have. So, I can reflect that Bob Holt started in law. That's actually really important. Yes, Mr. Bystander.
Mark, thanks for being with us tonight. Given the recent announcement of the suspension of HQ2 in Arlington at National Landing, are there any current operating budget implications for that for FY 2024, or is that in the future sometime?
The answer is there are no current implications in the fiscal 24 budget from that announcement. Now, John, there's a newspaper called the Wall Street Journal. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
I probably read it more than you actually.
But Christian Dorsey was quoted there, and I think this is a really important thing to keep in mind, which is that Amazon absolutely is not staying with the timeline they had when the Penn Place project came to the county board for approval last April. But what they've said is they're committed to doing the project. It's going to be slower than they thought. My expectation is they will put the shovel in the ground next year for 2 of the 4 buildings, not all 4 of the buildings. I think that actually makes sense given the number of workers they have that work remotely is going to increase. And Met Park is opening in June, and they have 8,000 employees in the county. They're at or above where they said they were gonna be on the number of employees coming into the county. So though the infrastructure and the building of all 4 buildings might be delayed, the number of employees they're at or ahead of where they need to be. And that is the thing that really, I think we need to focus on. Sure, we wish they were keeping the original schedule, but who in the tech industry is keeping their original schedule? And, you know, I talked as recently as last week with their senior vice president and, you know, they're committed to coming here and reaching their goal of 25,000. I think that'll happen on time. I don't know about all of it. So that's where we might see a little bit impact in the out year on some of the tax revenues.
Thanks.
Sure. Beaver.
Yeah, can you talk a little bit about the electrification of the county fleet, electric vehicles and the timetable for that?
Sure. In this budget, we are committing to doing another 22 electric vehicles in our sedan fleet. Our sedan fleet is actually dropping a little bit. We're trying not to use as many sedans, and we are going to have e-bikes. How many people here have ever tried an e-bike? Raise your hand. Tina, you've tried an e-bike. I can tell. Raise your hand. We're going to actually have some of our county staff, rather than using a car, get on an e-bike. And I can swear by them. I went on an e-bike trip over the summer, and that convinced me. So we have our sedan fleet will be at over 50% of electric vehicles. When it comes to our bus fleet, we are committed to doing a pilot on that, and we're about 2 years out from building a maintenance facility. We have a challenge. Electric buses, you can't take our current buses and replace them 1-for-1 with electric buses because they don't have the same range and they don't have the same durability. We're hoping we get there. So that is a determination that's going to be made in a couple of years. As technology keeps changing, it's like crazy. When we did our community energy plan, the idea of hydrogen buses was really just an idea in somebody's head. Now it's actually, there are tests going on. So I want to make sure we're not going to be building facilities that when they're done 3 or 4 years from now for electric buses might not be particularly, you know, the right facilities, but we're going to balance that and take care of it. So we're pushing as much as we can. And I have to say, I'm going to quote Chris Slatt said this yesterday at the county board work session. We don't want to have a fleet of electric buses, full electric buses, if they can't deliver the same functionality of what we have now, because at the end of the day, a bus fleet needs to move people. And I got to tell you, any bus is better than a car. Get people out of their cars into a bus. We don't have diesel buses. We get them into a CNG bus. It saves a lot of carbon from our environment. Get people out of their cars. So we're committed to having a hard fleet that works, and we're going to test and, you know, go with the best of them. But we have to be measured in how we go about doing that. It's Mr. Cummings.
Talk about technology for a minute. Arlington has been a world leader in much technology. It was a major driver, I think, of the new educational facilities in Alexandria and Amazon. What's new?
So we made investments about 7 or 8 years ago in a fiber network we have underground, which is one of the things that actually attracted Amazon to come here. We have unused capacity with that. So that's been a great investment. When it comes to technology, we're at the point right now for our county staff. We're, I think we're much more nimble than we used to be. I don't know about the rest of you, but I'm like tired of getting like whatever it is, Windows 11, 12, 13, we can't keep up with this. Built-in obsolescence drives me crazy. But I think we're in a good place when it comes to our technology. We have mobile enabled, all our workforce. We wouldn't have been able to make it through the pandemic without doing what we did to enable a remote workforce. So I'm thrilled with that. The next things you're going to see in technology, we're going to need to have some conversations, and I think they're going to be interesting conversations about should we have inspections done by drones? Should we have drones and robots helping our police and fire? There's a lot of exciting stuff going on in the world of virtual reality. I was thinking perhaps that all citizens who had complaints, we would send them into a virtual reality world. Apparently, that has not gone over very well with the county board. Thank you for laughing at my joke because it was a joke. So there's a lot of exciting stuff coming up with there, but we have a new director or Department of Technology Services doing the basics, is keeping us connected and able to do our work is really the most critical challenge because that technology just keeps changing all the time.
Any thought on the digital divide?
Yeah, so we're about 3 or 4 months away from getting back a report from a consultant that takes a look at the digital divide. There have been a number of people with Arl Fiber who talked a little bit about maybe using our fiber network to stand up a standalone municipal utility. Not something I'm a big fan of, but I think what we really need to do is we have broadband that goes pretty much everywhere in the county. We need to figure out how to fund that for people who need it. Because there's a lot of people who are challenged with paying the cost for that. And I think I don't have a clever answer to that, but there are some things that we're looking at that might make it a little bit more affordable. We're working with some of the providers on that. But that is just a huge, huge issue. We have enabled Wi-Fi at our outdoor spaces in our libraries, but I think that's great. It worked great for the pandemic, but kids want to do their work. And, there's a digital divide, which happens to be the same thing as a wealth divide in our county. And so I don't have a lot of clever answers for that, except that we should consider investing more in direct support to people who need that broadband service. There's not a lot of that in my budget, so it's a big expense. We'll go over there.
Sir, do you have any data or anything, you mentioned Fairfax, you encouraging them to work non-virtual. I, as a teacher, we have found out that virtual learning doesn't work very well. How is it working? Do you have any data on how that's working?
Are you talking about for Arlington Public Schools?
No.
Oh, for county and service provision?
Non-educator.
Yeah, so, I'll be the first to acknowledge that not having people physically together, there's absolutely something lost with that. The question is for our residents and the service they're getting, what is it? And I have to tell you that I've heard mixed things about it. So, I think through the pandemic, everybody was happy with getting virtual service, when it came to permitting, or it came to calling up and getting a code consultation. I think a lot more people are comfortable with doing that virtually. I think there still are some people, and they're not just, people who are used to doing this way, who really need some in-person service. Our Department of Human Services, our police, our fire, our water, street sewers have always been doing it in person. It's been a delicate balance. I'd say right now, we're getting close to the right balance, but I'm not sure we have it exactly. And as I hear from more people, I think we might have to lean towards bringing people in a little bit more, but it's been a delicate balance. I think for right now, the workforce is relatively adjusted to where it is. And I need to hear from you all. I mean, I'm asking people about what their take is on the kind of services they're getting, whether they need more in-person services. I frankly have just heard a mixed bag. Yes, we'll go over here.
Although you didn't mention what people perhaps thought you were going to mention, I'd like your comments on the enhanced housing option. What you think might happen, and any comments you have.
The enhanced housing option, which is also known as the missing middle, it's that kind of, it's not known by both names. One hasn't been retired. The Planning Commission is actually holding its second night of hearings on that. I submitted a recommendation to the Planning Commission that was silent on the number of units that the board should accept, was silent on things about area of space. I will tell you this is my view on it. I feel as if we're in a little bit of a post-factual scenario on that, where the facts, staff has done a lot of work on it, and there's been a lot of work done from people who have different views on it. I think right now it's one of those rare instances where it's really up to the board to make that decision. So I haven't expressed a view on that. I didn't express a view on caps. I will say this though, that we have an incredible challenge with housing affordability in our county. And I think nothing should be off the table. And I think that the work we've done the last few years by staff, I think has been really good at surfacing a lot of those issues. I say it as a bias. One of my daughters is living in a duplex in South Arlington. And I think that duplexes are great. I live on a street, some of you know pretty much where I live. At the top of our street, there's a bunch of duplexes. I think increasing the opportunity is good. I think that it's just a really, really difficult issue. So since I don't have to give you an answer of what I personally think about it, I'm going to pass on the moment, but I will tell you this, whatever the board adopts, we need to make sure, this is what I did recommend, that we have the commensurate parking with it. We have the commensurate amount of green space and trees. Those to me are not negotiable, whatever the number is, some things need to flow from that. So I think the board's going to take that up at the March meeting. And I think it's going to be a vigorous debate. I hear a lot from my neighbors, the ones who still talk to me about this, because I live in a single family residential neighborhood fairly close to Metro, and I think people are understandably concerned. I'll leave it at that. Yes.
You brought up affordable housing. And one of the things I really like about Arlington is that we do have an emphasis on affordable housing and we need it. One thing I've been confused about is I know that we have not-for-profit organizations that build or run affordable units. But I see all these, I go to Long Bridge, so I drive through whatever that area is, Costco and the Pentagon and so on. And there are high rises just sprouting like mushrooms. And I can't help but think, I wonder if there are any affordable units in there. Or did they make $25 to be let out of it? You know, because I'm not crazy about this idea that they can just pay some money and then they're out of the requirement. So if you would comment on that.
And so I think, and I don't know the exact year, I think it may have been 2005. The General Assembly passed a law that guides the way affordable housing is done in Arlington County. And it allows developers the option of doing on-site units or in lieu of that, doing a cash contribution.
So that's a state.
Yeah, it was done by the state. I think at the time back in 2005, a lot of our developers got frustrated with the county for insisting on units in all of their projects. So Patrick, if I get this wrong, you'll tell me. But I think that that's one of the tensions in all those buildings you see, many of them do have affordable units in it, small numbers of them. And in certain places, the developers have written a check for cash contributions. But we have recently, the one thing that I think I'm actually particularly proud of what we've done in the last few years is we've actually tried to put land into the deals. So Crystal Houses down in Crystal City. And there are a few other places that we're sort of keeping in mind. The biggest cost on affordable housing is finding the land for standalone affordable housing, and having what we're having right now in Ballston with Atlas working on the project with the church there to bring places. But I mean, I think it's an absolutely fair comment. You know, as we continue to build multifamily housing in the county, I understand, I'm not an expert on housing, but having affordable units mixed in is in some ways a really great approach. But there are certain limits of what we're able to ask.
And I'm sorry, no.
No, we're not.
Are
Are you kidding? Richard Lolich hasn't asked a question. If you don't let him ask a question, never hear the answer. All right, Richard, you get the last question, so it better be really smart.
What percentage of county employees now are working virtually?
Now, that's a really good question. I would say that about half of county employees are working virtually some of the time. There's a small cohort of them who are working virtually all the time. But we have some pretty strict rules about which employees can do that. I want to give you a few examples. We have, for our planners, I think that they should not be working virtually full time because they need to know what's going on in the community. Some of our accounting staff doesn't give me a lot of heartburn that they're not in the office. So I'd say it's about half of our employees are working virtually. I do it on occasion, when I want to avoid meetings. But it's around it. All right, sorry about that. Don't hit me. Oh, I forgot. Sarah Tracy is with me. She's with our communications and public engagement office. She's here to answer the really hard.
Thank you, Mark. That was an amazing presentation. We owe you a debt of gratitude for the time you spent preparing and coming this evening and sharing with us. Before we head out, I want to remind you, we have 2 upcoming programs. The dates and details are on the slide here. Our next program is April 12th. We hope to see everyone back here again for an evening very similar to this. You will soon be able to register for that program. Look for a link on our website or in your email. This event was recorded, so if you want to relive what you saw today, it will be available on our Facebook page and posted on our web page. Thank you all for joining us tonight. There's plenty of sandwiches left over, so please take them home for your friends and family, and thanks.
Thank you.